Welcome to the Minx and Muse podcast. I'm your host, Crimson Minx, creatrix of Minx and Muse, a dark feminine playhouse where we awaken our innate magic through esoerotic dance and witchcraft. Welcome to the portal of enchantment. Welcome to the Minx and Muse podcast. This is going to be a solo episode with me, Crimson. And today I wanted to chat about our studio archetype of the month for April 2024. And that archetype is the Resonant Reaper. And I don't know, it kind of sounds metal, it kind of sounds funky, but I really liked this archetypal name because it reminds us that we reap what we sow. We reap what we resonate. And this is all based on the magical principle like attracts like. That being said, there's a lot I want to chat about with this, which is why I'm doing a full podcast episode. I want to tie it into embodiment, which is a topic I feel like I'm always talking about, but hey, it's the work we do at Minx and Muse, so it makes sense to weave it into all different topics of discussion. But first, I want to address perhaps some mistruths that perhaps you may have heard around this concept of resonance. So with resonance, the idea is the energy at which we vibrate creates a frequency, and that frequency is what creates resonance. And with resonance, we match with the same resonance. So that like attracts like principle. We see it in music, we see it in harmonics. So this is not like an unfounded concept. However, the way in which people construe it sometimes, I think, can be a half truth. And this idea that you have to remain high vibe and love and light and unicorns and that we just don't do low vibe, I think can be really toxic because it's not reality and it's not actually healthy. And also this idea that like every life experience that we have is something that we asked for. And that feels really victim blaming to me. So I want to address that first and foremost. We do not live in a vacuum. We do not exist in our pure frequency alone. There is free will amongst all humans on this planet. And so, yeah, you may be in a really positive high vibe state. That doesn't mean that when you're at the grocery store, Steve is at that same high vibe state and you walk by each other and you have to experience his non-resonance to you. Or that if something like terrible traumatic happens to you that you asked for it. The fact is that we have free will and everyone is operating within their own energetic experiences and frequencies that are going to intertwine and influence each other. So no, we cannot just be the entire rulers of the planet based on our personal vibration and frequency. So let's just get that out there. And I don't want that to feel disempowering because we have so much personal power within our own sphere. So let's use the example of Steve at the grocery store. Keep it real simple. If you are matching his resonance, you may get and say he, drops something and then is cursing and then is fighting with someone in the aisle. Well, if you're matching that frequency, you may be pulled into that. And you may either be fighting with him or alongside of him. Whereas if you have a non-resonant frequency, it may be something that you can just walk on by and be completely unaffected by. What comes down to with our resonance is that it's something we have to cultivate and it's something that we have to embody beyond just the idea of deciding I'm going to be this or I'm going to do this or I set this intention and that's what I'm going to vibrate at. So that's the only experience I'm going to have in this life. One thing that has been really on my mind lately is this idea of what is wisdom and what is knowledge. And to me, wisdom requires embodiment. So I have been completely over spiritual or religious or witchy or magical teachers, guides, gurus, whatever, who seem to hold a lot of knowledge, but don't seem to apply that knowledge. So someone, say, who is very preachy about the teachings of Jesus, yet doesn't seem to hold that same regard for how they treat others who perhaps aren't aligned with their own belief systems. Or someone who is all talking about leading from the heart and leading with love, yet like, flipping off people in traffic and can't maintain their own energy when challenged. In witchcraft, I think we can get lost in thinking that we are a really high level witch because I have memorized all of my herbal correspondences and my color correspondences, and I do spells every lunar cycle, and I understand. I do the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram every day, and I have read this book and can speak really clearly on this concept. It's very easy, especially in the age of Aquarius, to obtain knowledge on things. But to me, that doesn't make you spiritual. It doesn't make you religious or magical. None of that applies until you actually embody it in the real world, in your life. I feel like we all know the caricature of like the guru who's all like peace and meditation and mala beads, and then like when tested in a situation they're total diva. It's kind of that idea. Well, that person isn't wise. That person just holds a lot of knowledge. And I never want us at Minx and Muse to value knowledge over wisdom. Wisdom is an understanding, it's an embodiment, and it comes from actually living the teachings and not just holding them in our mind. So again, it always comes back to that idea of we live in a world where we have been taught that our value is in our mind, but our mind ultimately is only part of it. Have you ever been like, oh my gosh, I'm so in my head. I'm so in my head. When you say that, that's generally, or you hear someone else saying it, that's generally not suggesting that you or they are in a good place. It's usually suggesting that you are very overwhelmed and being controlled by within your own head versus like moving through and moving forward something. So that really comes to mind, this idea of vibration and frequency and resonance, that it's not something that you cultivate simply in your mind. It's something that you experience in your body. And so when people will say, stay high vibe, okay, I say, I'd like to think that I'm a person that likes to live a high vibe life. But the reason why I live a high vibe life is because I process the low vibe stuff. We've talked about being performative before. We talk about it in our dance all the time, that we're not trying to create class experiences where people feel the need to perform in an inauthentic way as a way to perhaps impress or turn on other people. Instead, we're always about just being witnessed in our authentic expression. Well, this same thing is going to apply in our emotions and our energy. You can't be when someone, and yes, sometimes you have to be performative. Say you have to show up to work and you're in a bad mood, but your job is to like greet people or to like, be kind on a sales floor or something like that, serving customers. Like, you probably have to just fake it. There's nothing wrong with that. However, you can oftentimes feel that inauthenticity, and that's because we know that it's being performative. It's the same thing with our, high vibe nature. we cannot spiritually bypass or energetically bypass our full ass human experience. The way that you can maintain a more high vibrational resonance is by dealing with the low vibrational shit and processing it and integrating it and expressing it. This is why we have a lot of classes at the studio that allow us to bring our emotions, our sadness, our grief, our anger, our judgment, our shame, and to express it and process it through movement. We do this in Esoeroticism, the ritual. That's one of our signature classes. We have a class called Exorcism that is just bring your rage and you can dance and move through rage. This is a really healthy somatic way to tend to your resonance, because you are recognizing where perhaps you are out of alignment with what it is you truly desire to resonate with. I don't think any witch or magician or spiritual or religious person sets the intention to live a life of sadness and grief and shame, right? It's not what we're casting spells for. It's not what we are doing manifestation work for. So because of that, we think that, oh my gosh, well, we have to avoid it altogether. No, we need to do our shadow work and reflection and say, okay, well, if I'm doing spells for like love and peace and harmony or abundance, what is on the polar opposite of that I perhaps am embodying that I need to give voice to? And so this is why I'm always going to be preaching dance movement somatic. In fact, I have a new class once a month that's virtual, called Archetypal Alignment, that is not even like a full dance class. It's movement and somatics, but you can just do it in your chair, because I've realized some people do avoid the dance classes, and I want them to experience this somatic processing that can be so transformative and will create an embodied, authentic resonance. So if, say, you are, you want to do a spell, you want to have a happy, loving relationship, but you know that you are holding resentment for a past relationship and you're angry about it and you're hurt by it, you're not just going to say, well, that's not my vibe, so I'm not going to like resonate at it, because it's still going to be embodied within you. That's your truth, right? What we want to do instead is we want to give voice to it. We want to express it, experience it in a safe and grounded and empowering way. So obviously we don't want to express it in unhealthy ways through like, drug and alcohol abuse, or, raging out at Steve at the grocery store. This is why we also use pleasure in esoeroticism, because I truly believe that adding pleasure into this processing is how we always return to our body and ourself, and we drop into a state of non-resistance. More on that perhaps in a future of podcast. But yeah, so you need to tend to your embodied vibration and resonance. What do you need to process? What do you need to express? Because otherwise, this like love, light, unicorns bullshit that is one-sided, and that this is all I feel and I experience, is a facade. It's performative. And we want to be authentic. On the other hand, we don't want to, and I'm actually thinking of doing a whole future podcast on this, the idea of just being so addicted to like the dark feminine, the shadow, the going deeper and deeper into oneself and never emerging into the light, because it can be very addictive too. This idea that I'm always have to heal and that there's always so much broken within me. That's not a healthy place to be either. So remind yourself to have a healthy balance of both. Yes, I want to express and feel and process and integrate less than desirable emotions and experiences, but I don't want to remain in that space. That can become your default vibration if it's something that you are not self-empowered to move beyond. So obviously I'm not a therapist. I'm not telling you what you do to your life. I'm just telling you how magic works. I'm just telling you how energy works. I can even speak from personal experience. In my natal chart, I have a Mars Saturn conjunction. And I don't know how astrologically fluent people are out there, but that is just no, we actually just had one happen in the sky like last week, and a lot of the astrologers were like, be careful, manage your energy, manage your emotions, because that conjunction is known to create a lot of anger and lack of control of your emotions. And I will say, growing up, and this is not to like bypass and say I'm not responsible for this, but I had a lot of rage and I had a lot of anger, and I saw that shift. I do not identify with that transit as being controlling influence on my life anymore. I notice when it triggers, but because I'm sovereign witch, I know, ooh, this is not going to be the what's creating a reaction right now. I'm pausing and choosing how I'm going to respond. But it was a lot of movement. I noticed when I was younger, I really loved dancing and moving through like angry music. I felt like I could bring up and express so much that I had to stuff down inside of me. So this is maybe like if you just feel overwhelmed with sadness, put on some sad music and dance, do your sad girl or sad boy or sad person dance throughout it. And just notice that giving it a voice can completely change your energetic state. And then if say you're like, and I desire to feel more joy, then put on some music and dance through some joy. So that's what's so amazing about this somatic work, is that we can use it to process and integrate less than desirable emotions, but we can also use it to tap into more desirable and aligned emotions. So, point of this podcast, beyond me just having a space to ramble, is that we need to remember that that the idea of resonance and vibration and frequency is not a bypassing principle. It's just the laws of nature of how energy works, but we are the energy that controls the energy. So we don't bypass. Instead, we choose to do the work to recognize what's holding us back from resonating at where we want to, and then do that shadow integration and that somatic work. And this idea of embodiment, this idea that you actually have to move beyond the mind and into the body to truly cultivate your resonance. This is why I was thinking about a lot of spiritual practices talk about being led from the heart. And I always have kind of thought about that. And one conclusion I came to is that I think that's a powerful way to get us out of our minds and to drop us into our bodies, because we do kind of always associate the mind with the head, whether that's where it, exists or not, whatever. But I was like, I think I get this. This heart based is like, hey, drop into it, lead from your body. And so you can be the most profound spellcaster. You know all the things. You can name off all of the archangels and the demons, and you can, you have a whole apothecary. Who cares if you're not embodying it, if you're not using this as wisdom and you're only holding it as knowledge? And I think this is like really the way of the feminine, and the dark feminine is that addition of like, hey, be willing to go into the darkness, but also remember to stay within the body. And so I think that's what I wanted to chat about today. So um I'm so curious how this resonates with you. And my whole hope with this is that it brought a more empowering perspective to the idea of resonance, and not just relegating it to like some woo-woo baloney, and like the fact that this is a ancient magical principle that works. that is a universal truth. It's just how we choose to engage with it and how we choose to find empowerment through it. And it's always my hope that we just don't take this knowledge and keep it in our head, but that we embody it. And that's where we find our true wisdom. And in your body is where you are going to cultivate that ultimate authentic vibrational frequency. So, witches, thank you so much for watching or listening. Stay in your magic. Mwah. And I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for joining me for the Minx and Muse podcast. You can find show notes and learn more about the studio at www.minxandmuse.com. As a reminder, it is our birthright to transform, expand, and safely exist as sensual, conscious, and empowered creatures. I'll see you next time.